Let's continue our study of light. We know that light must come from a source. We discussed that light sometimes can go directly through an object without being changed. Do you remember what that was called? Transparent. That's right. We also talked about how light can go through an object partially, meaning that it may change slightly. Do you remember what that was called? That's right, translucent. And last, we talked about light being blocked by an object. What was that called? Yes, the science term for that is opaque. We also talked about light and how it can bounce off of objects or reflect. When you look in a bathroom mirror, how many images of yourself do you see? If your bathroom mirror had more than one mirror, you might be able to see several images of yourself at the same time. Today, we're going to experiment with small mirrors and how you can use them to produce multiple images. Then we're going to learn how to make a kaleidoscope. Let's take a look at the images on the screen. There you will see a kaleidoscope. Next to the kaleidoscope, you can see that the image you may see when looking through a kaleidoscope. We already know that light usually moves in a straight line, but that doesn't mean that when a beam of light hits something, it just stops. If the something it hits happens to be reflective, such as a mirror, a beam of light will bounce back, kind of like a tennis ball bouncing off the wall. And like a tennis ball, light doesn't just bounce off in any old direction. After observing light hitting a mirror, scientists found that a beam of light reflects off of a mirror at the same angle it comes in on. And if you take a look at the picture, boys and girls, you can see the angle in which the light is coming into and hitting the reflective surface, which in this case is a mirror. The reflective angle is exactly the same, going out off of the mirror. What happens if you face two reflective surfaces towards each other? The light will bounce off of one, zoom over to the other, and bounce off that one. Can you bounce a beam of light 3 times using 3 mirrors facing each other? Why, sure you can. A light beam will keep bouncing off as many mirrors as you can set up. And if you move the mirrors closer together, making the angles between them smaller, the light will bounce off even more. This is how a kaleidoscope works. All you need are 3 reflective surfaces that face each other. Light bounces back and forth between them, and by the time it gets to your eyes, you will see several images instead of just one. Now it's time to investigate. You will find directions in the online school for making a kaleidoscope at home. Here are some additional directions for making a simple kaleidoscope.
Hello there guys, welcome to another KD Crafts. This week we are looking at making a kaleidoscope using an old stacking crisps tube, Pringles tube or a Snackers tube, and a couple of permanent markers, and that's all you need. So let's grab our materials and let's get started. Okay, so for this project you're not going to need that many materials at all. You're going to need a Pringles tube or a stacking crisps container. As well as that, you're going to need some silver card or some reflective mirror cards. Then to add some colouring to your the top of your kaleidoscope. I chose to use some permanent marker pens, but you could use some thin coloured tissue paper and some glue or some transparent sequins. And then after that, the only other tools you're going to need are going to be a ruler, a pencil, and a pair of scissors for cutting the card. You can also use a sharp knife for cutting off the base of the tube. So the first thing we're going to need to do, once you've cleared those things away, is remove the top of your lids so you're left with your tube. So before we do anything, what we're going to need to do is remove the end part here of your metal tube. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my knife, dip it in there, and then just very carefully saw it on through to remove the end of the tube. Okay, you won't need this, so you can put that to the side, and then we're on to the next step. So put your tube to the side, because we're going to need that later. So our next step is going to be cutting the pieces of mirror. So for this step, you're going to want to take one piece of mirror cards. I managed to pick up my pack for $1.50 from Hobbycraft, so actually this works out to be quite an economical make. Then what you want to do is, if you actually put it on sideways, you'll see the mirror card is pretty much the right height if you use the width and A4 sheet. So what you want to do is take your silver card, flip it over onto the other side, and then using your ruler and your pencil, you want to measure out 3 pieces which are the same length. So in order to make this project, you're going to need to cut your strips to be 6.1 centimetres wide. To do that, just take your ruler and line it up, and every 6.1 centimetres, make a little mark. Whenever you're doing this, I always find it helpful. There you go, one mark there, 12.2, 18.3, and then once you've done that, just rule your lines and use the scissors to cut it out. Once you've done that, you should have 3 pieces look a little bit like this, which, when you take your tube and fit them in so the silver's facing inwards, 1, 2, and 3, you get that nice mirror effect, which you can probably see actually from the camera there. My fingers over the end there, you can see they're starting to reflect quite nicely inside there. So with your mirror pieces cut, we're actually very nearly there. So put your piece to the side. The next thing you're going to need to do is take your end cap, because this is going to be the piece we're going to attach our kaleidoscope colours to. So as I said earlier, you can either stick some coloured tissue paper on top of there, because you're going to be turning it, you'll get a lovely kaleidoscope effect, or you can go for a slightly different approach. If you've got some coloured pens that won't rub off, so Sharpies or pen markers are great, what you can do is you can take a favourite colour of Sharpie and go for different shapes. I find that triangles work particularly well, so all you want to do is just draw a shape onto your lid, and then just colour it in using your permanent marker. Once done that, why not put another shape at another place on your lids. Make sure to colour it in nice and firmly, so there's no extra bits left over. Once you've done that, swap over your colours and try a different one. Until you've gradually built up lots of different triangles and squares, a couple of pentagons, you can do some star shapes. Remember, the smaller they are, the more interesting your reflective patterns are going to be inside your kaleidoscope. So once you've done that, once you've finished that off, you should have something that looks a little bit like this. So I went for as many colours as I could fit in, and you can see here we've got lots of different shapes, got some triangles, got some squares, all sorts. And very simply, this is just going to go back on top of your kaleidoscope there, so when you turn it around, the shapes you see will change. So, once you've done that, you've got a couple of options. Now, the most important thing we want to do is we want to separate the outside of the tube. So you could either cover it up with some paper and put some different shapes on. If you've got some sequins, you can stick those on. Covering is one way of doing it. I chose to do it by spraying it a base coat of red.
Now it's time for your investigation, boys and girls. It's time to make your own kaleidoscope. Please remember to work with your learning coach while creating your kaleidoscope. Be as creative as you can. Make sure if you have an additional lid that you can place it on the bottom of this container that had potato chips in. That way the mirror images will not fall out the bottom. You certainly don't need to paint the outside of your can, as this gentleman was showing in our video. You can cover it with paper, construction paper, or color it with markers as well. Think about these things, boys and girls, as you work with your kaleidoscope that you created. Why does your kaleidoscope work best when you hold it toward the light? Also be thinking about, why do the mirrors in the tube need to face inward, or the reflective paper? Why do they need to face inward toward each other? I want you to be able to describe what you saw through the kaleidoscope. And then, while looking through the kaleidoscope, why do you see many different designs? Now it's time for your investigation. Create your kaleidoscope with your learning coach and have fun.